Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome. We started in the previous session on identifying or selecting business model based on trend. We will continue that discussion, and then we will try to see whether just selecting based on trend is important, or there are other issues like the domain knowledge, or particularly the circle of competence. Unless something is at the center of the circle of your competence, whether it is really right to choose a particular business model. So, we will try to understand what do we mean by circle of competence, and we will end the discussion by talking about effectuation, which was introduced by Sarosh Saraswati, and this has something to do with the circle of competence, and then how successful entrepreneurs actually think of selecting business model and then make decisions based on all of that. So, continuing the discussion from previous session, look at the possibilities, endless possibilities in Internet of Things. It has become an inextricable part of our life. There are enormous ocean of possibilities. So, just anybody and everybody might think that, okay, so this is the technology of the future, technology of today and the future. So, let us do something in this domain like Uber, Netflix, YouTube, Zipdial. All these would not be possible without the latest telecommunication and internet in particular. Zipdial is an Indian company. It was taken over by LinkedIn. We discussed that earlier. There are so much of other possibilities. For example, AI, say natural language processing, automated reasoning, machine learning, information retrieval are growing, and they are growing almost exponentially. So, that kinds of tells us about the enormous possibilities of creating new venture in this domain. But then there is just a point of caution that particularly if you look back on the statistics that why businesses fail, we have seen that about 42% of the companies failed after raising about $2 million. That means they must have developed their product and they have gone to the market, but still they failed, and that was 42%. People say that more than 90% of the companies fail after raising so much of money. So, it is not always necessary that if you are if you are ahead of the technology, ahead of means you are in the new technology domain, you have identified a new pain about which even the customers are not familiar. So, came up with a solution, and then customers think that they cannot live without it. They demand that product, not just nice to have it, but definitely they would like to have it. So, that perhaps is one of the best proposition for entering into a new business. As per a new book, this is referred to as blue ocean, like existing market where there are competitions. These competitors or existing business houses who actually compete with each other, they are referred to as shark. Like it is almost like a war that is happening in the marketplace. So many things are done by marketers to get a bigger pie of the market. So, they will be doing almost everything possible, just short of firing with guns and bombs. They will be doing almost everything. There are reports that Bajaj Auto and TVS Motors came up with a same engine with double ignition system on the same day. So, they filed patent on the same day, almost like that. So, this kind of coincidence is very rare to happen. So, people think that there are so much of espionage happening, everybody is trying to understand what the other people are doing. So, competition is so hot, it is almost like people are kind of doing bloodshed of their competitors. So, they are trying to get a bigger pie of the market, that is called red ocean marketplace. Whereas, you identify a new pain and there are new set of customers or customers with new kind of needs, aspirations, and you have the solution for them. So, you have something like a monopoly status and you are doing wonderful business. What can be better than that? But statistics show that in this kind of a situation, almost more than 90% of the companies, they do not sustain, either they fail or they are taken over by other companies. It's difficult, means it's a difficult journey, or even though you are in a blue ocean. Blue ocean means there is no competition. The reason may be many actually. Suppose you have a wonderful product and you have developed it, you have been funded, say some couple of millions of dollars or maybe even more. There are companies with more than $100 million of funding and $100 million of turnover, they also do not sustain. There are stories like that. So, why that happens? This happens because it is one thing to develop a product and achieve early growth, but sustaining the growth is another thing, because there are different kinds of customers and different kind of customers do have different kinds of risk aversion and they do not feel comfortable with new product. So, different kind of business process management is necessary in the growth phase. So, that is why for new product development there is something called product adoption cycle. So, there are different kinds of people who look forward to different kinds of validation before they buy a product. So, look at this product adoption curve. The early stage, in the early stage when you have almost like a minimum viable prototype, meaning that you have a product with features that you think the customer will look at it and understand your value proposition. That is a product with minimum features, but that gives customer the maximum satisfaction or the features that customers value the most. So, you find that people are actually lapping up. So, gradually you try to refine the product and slowly move forward and you achieve growth. So, early adopters who are not kind of innovators, they are not forgiving as much as innovator. These people are kind of a leader in the respective segment, they are educated, they are knowledgeable, but then they have slightly less risk appetite compared to innovator. They would like to see that your product is validated by some people, only then they would buy, but then there is still somewhat innovator kind of customers. So, you gain more traction in the marketplace and you think that your company is growing and you are seeing some huge growth perhaps on your top line. Top line means sales, bottom line means profit. So, you see your top line is growing, but then from early adopters to early majority, it is a very different ball game altogether. Here you have started growing. So, your business will demand many things, like your turnover has gone up, that means more and more products are going to the marketplace, and managing growth itself is a different ball game. You need a professional CEO to manage growth, number one. Number two, you need lot of resources. So long you had say a couple of millions of dollars and you are kind of okay. Now, your number of head count is likely to increase because now there are more customers. Suppose you in the early adopters you had only say 5,000 customers. So, your setup could respond to customer complaints. Now, suppose you have 10,000 customers, the same set of people, if you have the same set of people attending the 10,000, double the customers, all the customers are going to be unhappy, meaning earlier it was absolutely happy, now they are less happy or everybody is complaining, and then moving forward perhaps from 10,000 customers, suddenly you may see that there is a drop. The new customers are not enamored or they are kind of not happy with whatever your customer service, your response, your troubleshooting, etc. So, you need resources, you need professional, you need more manpower. Most importantly, you need a lot of money to sustain the growth phase. You need more working capital. If you think of a manufacturing setup, you have raw material stock, goods in process, finished goods, receivable. If suppose your turnover is 5,000 units, so if you need say $2 million of working capital, now suppose your turnover is 10,000 units, then you need more than double that money as working capital, because you need more raw material, more goods in process, more finished goods, and as the sales grow, your receivables will increase faster compared to the sales growth. Now, if you are not ready, most of the people are not ready, and then they say that we run out of cash. Many companies at this level will say that we run out of cash, but the reason may be something very different. It is not always, definitely negative cash flow is a reality, but it is not the cash per se which has caused this cash flow. It is your strategy, it is your planning that we are going to need more money. So, at least 6 months ahead you must plan that there is going to be a cash flow issue. So, we must arrange money at the beginning, only then you will be able to catch up and then move forward. So, I have just put a ladder on this, saying that this ladder actually is your more money, a CEO who can take care of the growth phase, then more resources in the form of more people who can manage your business processes at different points, like say customer complaint handling and many more things. And most importantly, your customers in the early majority are more demanding. Suppose you are building a software, and software always have bugs. So, innovators kind of customer will identify bugs, and he or she is not going to mind, or rather they will find a solution, they will do the troubleshooting, and they are going to call you back saying that look, you have these bugs and I have sorted it out. So, use this knowledge and put it as a solution. So, you get kind of help, you can get lot of help from innovator kind of customer. Early adopters will be kind of okay, there are some bugs here and there, and then they will complain. So, you sort them, you solve them, and they are happy. Early majority, if they see there is a bug, they will think that it is going to jeopardize their entire business. They are not going to touch your software. So, it is a wall. It is a wall that to cross that wall, your product has to be absolutely perfect without any bug. Otherwise, they will think that you are a very early stage startup, and they cannot risk their business with your software, because it is going to be integrated with their main system, and then system may crash or something. People are so much conscious about vulnerability. So, they will think that through your software somebody may hack their system, and then etc. So, that is the problem. That is why even if you are at the forefront of technology change or trend, it is not always necessary that you are going to be successful. It is very important to understand that it is not just technology trend that is going to help you. We had a startup here called Alive Home. They were some bunch of students who started this, but the main CEO of the company was from agriculture engineering, and she did not have much idea about Internet of Things. Their technology, their business was very simple. It was a switching mechanism using internet. You have an app, and all the systems that you would like to control through the app are connected. So, anytime you can see whether some of the switches are on or off. You could put it on and off using your cell phone. But then the people who were expert in that, at some point of time they said we need larger size of the pie, larger share of the pie. So, there was problem, and eventually the company was broken into two, and eventually the company went means now it is just there for the sake of being there. There is hardly any business. So, it is not even though you are at the forefront of the business, it is necessary that you have expertise in that is called circle of competence. You have some competences. So, you need to be your business need to be at the center of that circle of competence. Otherwise, even many large companies, they started something beyond, outside their circle of competence, they fail, because it is very important that you have a handle on the technology part. So, trend alone is, the point is that trend alone is not the criteria for selecting a business model. Everybody has to be careful about this chasm that comes after early adopters. This book was written by Geoffrey Moore in 1999, but ever since the book was published, every marketer is reading that and just swallowing it, assimilating it to the core, so that they do not make the same mistake. Like they are prepared, they know that there is a chasm after early adopters, so they prepare themselves about that. Even big companies fail when they start doing something new, like for example, Procter and Gamble came up with a concentrate, detergent concentrate. They had this detergent called Tide, that was kind of almost like a market leader. So, they suddenly came up with a concentrate, few drops of that is equivalent to maybe 50 grams of the powdered detergent. But then customers thought, what is this? They had apprehension whether few drops can do the job that 50 grams of the detergent does. So, they were skeptic, and most of the people did not buy. So, they had to shut it down. So, look at the brand presence of a company. It is a huge global company. They came up with a new product, and that product was actually working. There was no doubt about the quality, efficacy of the product, but it was not successful because customers did not perceive that to be an acceptable product. So, it was something like nice to have product, not really must have kind of a product, because there was an alternative called Tide or any other detergent. Chances were there that they would go to some other brand rather than remaining in this concentrate. If suppose Procter and Gamble decided to eliminate Tide from the market and introduce this concentrate, chances are very high that customers would switch to another brand, maybe Hindustan Lever or some other brand from Procter and Gamble. So, that is such a danger. Once customers leave you and go to somebody else, it becomes a huge difficult task to bring them back. So, even though you look at a blue ocean marketplace and you think that this is a very attractive proposition to enter into a blue ocean where there is no competition, you have monopoly, you have to think a broader perspective of the thing, like whether you can sustain the growth phase, whether you can whether you understand the customers, and whether the early majority of the customers are going to adopt your technology or not. You have to be very careful about that. So, most importantly, when you are in a blue ocean marketplace, it is too attractive for anybody and everybody to enter into that same marketplace. They will find the technology from somewhere. There are big companies with tons of money in their bank accounts. So, they will find technology and enter inside, and then there will be huge competition. So, attractiveness of the market will attract competition. Competition will come from nowhere. Here is an example: Anki Robotics and artificial intelligence. They were in robotics and they were in artificial intelligence. So, their robots are very intelligent. They raised $200 million, and their robots were far ahead compared to competition. So, they were in a blue ocean marketplace. In fact, in most of the competition, like Toys R Us, in this kind of there used to be competition, and they used to come far ahead of competition. They used to come fast, but then the second one was far behind them. So, they made huge progress in creating almost like humanoid kind of robots, and then their ultimate objective was that toys was not their objective. Their objective was to project or build robots which will replace many of the operations that humans do. So, with that objective, they started this. After raising $200 million and a turnover of $100 million for consecutively 3 years, and they sold 1.5 million robots, but they had to shut down in April 2019, from 13 to 19, and their technology was so advanced that after April, just recently it has been taken over by another company, means its assets have been bought out, it was not taken over. They just bought the knowledge, the infrastructure. So, that shows that also proved that this was highly valuable company, and if some venture capitalists have funded $200 million to a company, definitely they were so convinced that this company has the right ingredients to be successful, but it was not, because they could not cross that 100 million turnover and achieve growth at this point of time. Of course, the exact reason is not known, but if you read the whole story, the available information, not the whole story is not available. If you read only the available information, it may appear as if they restricted their marketing within the American market, and then they did not try to really attain global scale. They were kind of focusing on only a small marketplace. So, the turnover was not growing. This was a time when their turnover should have grown significantly, something like say 25 to 50% a year, whereas their turnover was almost stagnant. Another company called Airware. Airware, a wonderful company. They were making operating systems for drone, like Microsoft makes operating system for PCs. They made operating system for drone. So, you can compare this company with Microsoft, almost like technologically, if you speak, you can compare it. There was hardly any company in the world who were making operating system for drone. Most of the people were making hardware, but then tragedy is that their operating system was so very intelligent and it had so many features that to use their software you need kind of hardware to educate your drone. That was very difficult, meaning the hardware was not adequately advanced to exploit the different features of their software. So, what they thought was that okay, the market is not good enough, means the drone players are not good enough. So, we need more sophisticated drone to exploit our software. So, they decided to manufacture drone, meaning from software they went into hardware. This is such a devastating mistake. Hardware is a different ball game altogether. Software can be, even if you have talented people, you can build software in a short span of time. Building hardware requires a long time, and it's not always so easy in a competing market when there are so many hardware companies, meaning drone manufacturing companies. Suddenly, without any background, without any credential, you start manufacturing hardware is a fatal mistake, and that's what happened. Like when they started building their own drone, own hardware, it took so much time, so much effort and burned so much of money that other companies, they came up with their own operating system by that time, and the drone technology also advanced. So, eventually they just allowed the competitors to run over them, something like that, and eventually they died a natural death. So, this is the point that is the discussion of today, that their circle of competence was in software, their circle of competence was in operating system. So, rather than matching their operating system to the available drone, they built something that existing market was not demanding. So, they were ahead of time. Let them be ahead of time, that is not a problem. But whatever drones were there in the marketplace, they could cater to them. If you can build something so advanced, you can definitely build something that is not so advanced. So, they should have catered to the market demand. Rather than doing that, they wanted to remain ahead, and then they diversified into something that was not within their circle of competence. So, circle of competence is very important, and they actually failed to remain within that. This graphics shows that the world actually is the world means knowledge, world of knowledge is so vast that we do not even know what are there to know. So, that is the vastness of the knowledge today, and it is growing by the day, by the minute, by the second. So, there is something that we do not even know what is the domain. Then there is something that we know that we do not know. I know that okay, there are this knowledge is like artificial intelligence, I do not know. So, there are many things that I do not know. Then I think that I know many things, but which I actually do not know. But there is a very small domain that I actually think that I know, and I actually know. That is called circle of competence, which I know very well, perhaps know better than many people. So, if we do something within this domain, chances are that we will have a much better product or proposition, value proposition compared to others. So, that is called circle of competence, and if you are within the circle of competence, chances are very high that you will be able to win. Circle of competence actually came long back, or it came from a different domain. You all know about Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. These two investors invest, they are value investors. They invest based on the intrinsic value of shares of a company, and they said, they espoused that you should invest in companies in the industry or in the domain in which you have sufficient knowledge to understand the difference between 2 companies, 3 companies. So, you invest in a company in a domain that you know well, and you know that this is the leader in this domain and they are going to be successful, only then you will be successful. Tom Watson, the founder of IBM, created IBM and it took IBM to great heights, but then his humble acceptance is that he said, I am no genius. He just have some spots where he is great, perhaps he is brilliant. So, he says that I am focusing only on those spots, that is the circle of competence. So, once somebody focuses on the circle of competence, then it becomes easy for them to move forward to become successful, because they can create great products, great services, etc. And the advice is that do not try to do too many things, focus only on one thing, know what is your circle of competence, try to remain at the core of it, at the center of it, and then you gradually enlarge as you move forward with experience and with your team becoming smarter. You build core competency, you train your people in your core circle of competence, and then gradually you may perhaps diversify a little bit. There are examples where diversification helped in circle of competence and diversification in outside the circle of competence, there are devastation. For example, GE, General Electric, they diversified in 1981 in their circle of competence. So, they became from a 12 billion company to a $400 billion company in 2001. Then they became over ambitious and then diversified into outside the circle of competence. They came down in 2019 to a $76 billion company only. There are many examples about companies becoming great within the circle of competence and not so great outside. This is a wonderful example. Achal Bakeri of Symphony Limited, the product is still there, the company is still there, it is a live example, and you can read it from many places. There are interviews with Achal Bakeri, and I have taken from YouTube. You can see the link and visit there. This Bakeri came from US after MBA, being in Gujarat, it was very hot, and then he bought a air cooler, and he was not happy with that because the cooler was not so, it was creating noise, it has so many difficulties. So, he thought that if I build a wonderful cooler, then people are going to buy this. Look at this analogy I have been mentioning repeatedly, that you try to identify an opportunity from the pain that you suffer. So, Bakeri identified the pain from the pain that he suffered. So, he identified that okay, a wonderful air cooler will be a wonderful idea. So, he started selling his cooler in 60 countries, and then the company became from 0 to 4,500 crore rupees company. So, he was ambitious, he became ambitious, he started diversifying into what not, room heater, exhaust fan, flour mill, washing machine, water purifier, etc., etc. What was the result? This was outside his circle of competence, and in 2002 he reported a loss of 31 crore on a measly sale of 28 crore, and eventually their market capitalization became almost 0, from 4,500 crore to 0, but then somehow they realized that we are actually going outside our circle of competence. Then they could restructure their debt with the banker. Restructuring meaning that bank has done some restructuring of their loan, meaning some of the loans were converted into equity, some interest has been foregone, something like that, and most importantly they dropped almost all the diversified product. They had only the air cooler and the geyser, and then they came back to profit in 2008. And look at the present market capitalization. Now, it is more than a 1 lakh crore rupees company, just by coming back into the circle of competence. That is, in a nutshell, the story about circle of competence. One should always remain within the circle of competence, only then they can remain, they can be profitable. Now, other than circle of competence, it is highly related, the effectuation, that is the next topic, which is highly related to circle of competence, meaning you try to understand your strength, weaknesses, based on that you make decision. So, when you look at successful entrepreneurs, you may ask this question: are they a different species of human being or different whatever, are they different? So, Saraswati has the solution. So, if you have this question, that how they make decision and based on what are the principles of their decision making and action taking, then you should read more about effectuation. Saraswati talked to 30 founders of companies with turnover from $200 million to $6.5 billion, and she wanted to understand how are these founders different compared to others, or out of these 30 founders, what are the common traits of successful ones and what is different from the unsuccessful ones. And she found that successful entrepreneurs always ask these questions: who they are, what they know, whom they know, the resources they control, a process referred to as effectuation. So, when you try to select a business model, try to ask this question to understand your strengths, your weaknesses. Only then, based on the answer, perhaps if you start a business, you create a new venture, based on this, perhaps you are going to be successful. So, most importantly, Saraswati places it this way: a bird in hand, meaning that what do you have, who are you, and what is your strength, like what is your knowledge, what is your experience, what is your circle of competence. Depending on that, and what with whom you are networked. So, you know that if you have a technology problem, somebody is going to come and help. So, depending on all of that, you make a decision. Affordable loss. Suppose you start a business and the downside is endless. So, you will not be able to pivot, you will be crushed. So, you know how much loss you can sustain. So, only then you make a decision. So, you should know affordable loss. She termed another item called lemonade, which is nothing but you should be able to leverage on contingencies. There might be some negatives, positives, etc., etc. You should be able to identify opportunities and adversities, only then you will be successful. If you sit back and if you ruminate as to what if this happens, that happens, then you will not be able to go anywhere. Another item she called patchwork quilt. She says that you should make partnership with people with diversified knowledge or complementary skill, particularly who are committed, who are not going to bestow everything on you and then enjoy life. So, you need committed people in your team. Pilot in the plane, she identified that successful entrepreneurs think that they are their boss, they are their creator of destiny. They do not trust in destiny, they think that they can create their own future. Future cannot be predicted or say found, identify or anything, future can be made. So, that was the trait of successful entrepreneurs. But then there is always a contrarian view. There is a saying that start small, leave your comfort zone. Comfort zone is the circle of competence. Challenge the status quo, meaning whatever is the present situation, you just challenge that and try new things to find success. So, for everything there is always a contrarian view. Some important thoughts. This is important, but I will not waste time. Just pause and read some references, some concluding remarks, and thank you very much.